So I'm going to jump off and let you introduce Diana.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending our annual meeting. As Beth mentioned, I'm Ted Bardicke. I'm CEO of Clean Power Alliance. We are the default energy provider for much of Los Angeles and Ventura counties and the largest CCA in the state. I'm very pleased to be having both my board chair and Senator Portantino here with us today. On the legislative front, a lot of last year in the CCA world was spent on SB 612, and we really wanted to thank and honor Senator Portantino and his connection, particularly with our board chair Diana Mahmood. But just a little background on this is that for many of us in the CCA world, the Power Charge Indifference Adjustment, or PCIA, is an ongoing issue, particularly since the reform of it was passed in 2018 by the Commission. It's an issue of fairness that at times can really hurt our ability to compete. It's also a very complex issue. And so leading up to SB 612, the Commission said to CalCCA and the IOUs, go try to figure this out about how to make it more fair. And we spent a year on reaching an agreement with CalCCA and Edison and some of the direct access providers. Thought we had a good framework, and then it didn't get a hearing at the CPUC for over a year. And at that point, when your regulatory process doesn't seem to be working as smoothly as it should, we turn to the legislature. And as we turn to the legislature, we know that the PCIA is a complex issue and one that involves multiple stakeholders. So, we were looking for someone who was both savvy enough to navigate those political issues, someone who cared about the fairness and their constituents and how they were being treated as ratepayers, but also smart enough to sort of dive deep into the issues itself and be able to come out on the other side with a winning argument. And so as we looked around, we realized that Senator Portantino was not only an obvious choice, but really the only choice. And when we were deciding how to approach him, we were definitely fortunate enough to have leading our board chair, Diana Mahmood, who has a great relationship with the senator, mayor of South Pasadena, a city in her district, a city in Senator Portantino's district, to make that connection, outline the issue, and ask for support. And it's just been quite a phenomenal run for Diana, who we've been very lucky because she comes from the energy industry, and it's really great to have a board chair who knows the ins and outs of this and can distill these things down in a way that made sense to the senator, as well as made sense to the other CCAs. So with that, I'd really like to invite up Diana Mahmood, board chair of Clean Power Alliance, to introduce the senator and say a few words about why he's receiving the award today.
Thank you, Ted, for that nice introduction. And here with me is Senator Anthony Portantino, who I'm very proud to say is my representative in the California State Senate. When CalCCA and Ted approached me with the idea of asking Senator Portantino to sponsor a CalCCA bill, I was on board as I knew there was no better choice. Some of you may know the senator as the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. He earned that appointment to that very powerful position through his hard work and considerable skill. He is best known in my town as a long term opponent of the state's efforts, Caltrans efforts, to build a second freeway through the city of South Pasadena, a city only encompassing 3.5 square miles. Caltrans tried for 50 years, but with the considerable assistance given to us by Senator Portantino, we, and I do mean we, were ultimately successful in defeating that effort. Senator Portantino is a very effective and savvy champion for his constituents. So it was no surprise when Ted asked if I was willing to speak to the senator about a CCA bill to address the PCIA. And although education is his passion, he gladly agreed to help us when we explained the issues surrounding PCIA and the importance of achieving fairness for CCA customers. When COVID restrictions hit and all legislators were limited to 12 bills, he showed his determination to help CCA members by keeping what ultimately became SB 612 as one of his 12. He remained a steadfast supporter, even when it looked like it would not get a hearing. He showed his fierceness as he pushed every CCA to continue their outreach and advocacy, which led to a coalition of over 100 organizations and groups that support SB 612. And he was an incredible advocate. I remember him saying, "We're not going to take a pillow to this fight." Our efforts were not in vain. Our efforts pushed the PUC to move forward discussions that had been stalled, as Ted referenced, for over a year. And we are primed and ready to move this bill forward in the future to ensure fairness to CCA customers. So with that, Senator Portantino, thank you for your strong support of California community choice aggregators and being the fabulous champion that you are. And with that, it's my pleasure to give you this award.
Well, thank you, Diana. Let me look in the bag here. Wow. Look at that, everybody. Thank you very much. What an honor. It's one of the prettier awards, and it's green, the right color. Thank you. It's hard to follow Diana. You all know her as a board member, and of course now she's the chair. But as she mentioned, she's the mayor in one of my cities and one of the brightest, most talented local elected officials that I've been honored to serve with and around, and get to share her or take her expertise as I do legislation. So it's been a great partnership working with you on this bill and also on some of the housing and transportation issues that we've worked with together. So thank you, Diana, for just being a good friend and being such a great representative for the city of South Pasadena. It's a good partnership. And of course, when you came and asked me to do this, what was I supposed to say? No other word other than yes would have been acceptable, because if Diana says I'm tenacious, she's just as tenacious when it comes to issues that she believes in. So last December, we came up with the idea of doing SB 16. I don't do a lot in the energy space. As Diana mentioned, education is where I do most of my work. Obviously, when I first got elected in 2006, we didn't really have the CCAs that we have today, and they didn't exist. It was just a 4-year-old law that had passed on the heels of the energy crisis. But in the early years, it really marked the beginning of the legislature going all in the effort to fight climate change. Obviously, in 2006, AB 32 was passed. And over the next few years, there were a number of important legislative accomplishments were enacted. So for me, it's an honor to get such an award on an issue that is so important to California, to the country, to the nation. How do we have green energy? How do we move forward and protect our environment, our climate, and our people? And so this really, really means a lot. Your early efforts led by grassroots folks on the ground, community leaders like many of you, not by lawmakers. It was a real substantive change from local people asking for this important energy sector to expand. All those efforts aimed at accelerating the changes needed in energy to curb greenhouse gases and finally take advantage of AB 117, which passed in 2002. By 2010, Marin Clean Energy launched, which helped create the buzz in communities throughout the state. That was certainly true in my district and others in the Clean Power Alliance territory. Local leaders and advocates who had for years been arguing for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which ultimately created the groundswell of support for AB 32, began talking about the need to take matters into their own hands to clean up the energy sector. A mere 6 years later, the Clean Power Alliance was born. When we began talking, Diana and all of you, about authoring this bill, I was surprised to learn that there are 23 CCAs powering over 200 communities and 11 million customers throughout California. An astounding 1/3 of the landscape once dominated by the 3 IOUs that most grew up knowing or seeing their bills come through in our mail is now served by CCAs, 11 million customers. For me, that was a tipping point in the discussion. Not only was this important for my district, it's important for the ratepayers throughout the state. A bill that was based on a fair market fairness, on treating customers equally, regardless of who their energy provider is, was simply the right thing to do, particularly for stakeholders in an industry that has been so incredibly vital in our effort to fight climate change. Regardless of fairness, if CCAs represented the interests of 11 million customers, that meant the other 2/3 were represented by the other side, which translated in Sacramento, frankly, to some significant opposition to what we're trying to do. Of course, getting votes in the legislature whose constituents could be impacted by change, and this was not easy. And that's where the partnership between my office and the Clean Power Alliance and all of the CCA grassroots activists came to fruition. You rose to the challenge. You made the right arguments. You put a full court press and pushed all of the right buttons through your lobbying efforts, which frankly was made harder because of the pandemic protocols and the distance. But most importantly, you brought strength in numbers, that this is a bread and butter issue for organizations like you and for ratepayers around the state. Despite formidable opposition, we were able to get this through policy committee, get it through the Senate, and get it over to the Assembly with bipartisan support. That's a testament to all of the grassroots activists and all of the organizations that supported us. While we didn't get it through the final hurdle, that Assembly Energy Committee would not give us, we're not done, and we can certainly keep our heads held high. Making it as far as we did in a year one wasn't easy, but I'm determined to continue the conversation and hopefully push it over the finish line this year. You know, we have a 2-year legislative session, so we have another bite at the apple. You've all demonstrated your significant statewide support and helping educate my colleagues and local leaders in reshaping this energy landscape. So we're not done, and California needs to continue to be a world leader in fighting climate change. And this is where obviously we all have a challenge. Regardless of what happens to SB 612, we all have to continue to look forward, not backwards. Local leaders need to fuel the efforts to launch and pass, which launched and passed AB 32 in 2006, as well as many other innovations. We all have that responsibility going forward, and we can all make use of that. As my colleagues in the Assembly, Assembly Speaker Rendon and Majority Leader Bob Hertzberg in the Senate commented when they were at the Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, things are much worse than we thought they were, and we just need to all step up even more. We'll recognize that. So despite historic investments, we're going to win this fight. And extreme heat events, wildfires continue to burn across our state. There's more for us to do. We cannot lose, and we cannot, even though it looks like at the moment we're not winning, we have to continue to fight these catastrophic fires and prolonged droughts tied to climate change. This is just one way we can do it. We got to continue to do more. For this, your leadership is needed. Just with other major landmark policy shifts, these efforts start with local innovation. CCAs will be needed to foster those efforts that will create the next wave of clean energy sources that will allow us to decarbonize the grid. But more than that, your local leadership will be needed in other areas as well, as decarbonizing the transportation sector, protecting workers in this transition, and ensuring that disadvantaged communities and underrepresented people are not left behind in this effort. The worker protection piece is very important. We must be in partnership with our labor partners as well. We must make sure that as we change our reliance and we focus on innovation, we bring along the economy as well. We need you to continue to think big and continue to move out of our comfort zones. CCAs are helping to drive the conversation today, but CCAs may not always be here. California may morph into something different in the future. The question is, how will we make an impact and help us move the conversation forward? What will be our legacy as we move forward? So for me, thank you for bringing this issue to me. Thank you for working so tirelessly to put forth green energy policy. And obviously, thank you for this wonderful honor. I will proudly display it and cherish this year and continue the fight as we go into next year. Thank you, everybody, and hope everybody has a peaceful and safe holiday as we enter the holiday season. Happy Hanukkah. We're in Hanukkah this week, and obviously Christmas is right around the corner. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you so much, Senator Portantino.
And Ted and Beth, you guys, I get the award, but Ted and Beth do all the work with Diana. So, and my staff, Tara and Aaron, I got to give a shout out to all of the staff on your team and on my team for making this happen.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. There are masses of people behind this. You can see them all clapping. They were all involved. And I'll give a shout out to Sean McNeil, our legislative director, who I know worked very closely with you and your staff and our lobbyists. So, all right, I look forward to working with you next year in 2022. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you